past years, BRIC countries, Brazil, Russia, India, and China, have emerged as critical players in the global economy. With their rapidly growing economies, these countries are changing the traditional power dynamics in the world economy. These pictures examine how the BRIC nations are shaking things up and what it means for the global economy. We'll start by looking at the economic growth projections for each country and what's driving their expansion. We'll also explore their various challenges, including corruption, political instability, and environmental concerns. Next, we'll examine these nations' impact on the global economy. We'll explore how their growing middle classes drive consumer demand and how their increasing global connectivity creates new opportunities for trade and investment. Finally, we'll look at the implications of the BRIC nations' rise for the future of the global economy. We'll consider how their rise reshapes international trade patterns and how their continued growth might affect the global balance of power. So join us for this deep dive into the BRIC nations and their impact on the worldwide economy.
What we're going to talk about, there is a new emerging currency, and it might not be new, but it's too new to a whole lot of people. And it's called BRIC. I'm not talking about Brick House, that was a song. And it's called BRIC. And what happened is there are nations that are coming together. They're coming together. Okay. I got Brother Randy Evans coming on. And there are countries that are coming together. BRIC. First thing I'll say is BRIC. The B is for Brazil. R is for Russia. I is for India. C is for China and South Africa. And what they're doing is they're coming together to have their own currency. And what we're going to do is we're going to look at the ramifications. We're going to look at why are these nations coming together, and they want to, I'm not going to say devalue, they're going to devalue the dollar. And what is the reason? You know what? Because the dollar bill has been strong. That's been the most used currency all over the world. And I got Brother Randy Evans coming in, and I was doing a lot of reading about BRIC, and what I understood is that China and all of these nations, they are saying that they just don't want to rely on the dollar bill anymore. They don't want to deal with the currency anymore. And the thing is, I think two things that they're saying is that the dollar bill are fiat dollars. I have to explain what fiat means, because what fiat means is that we have printed so much money, so much capital. And what happens is when you print more and more and more of something, and it's not backed up by anything, it depreciates in value. And I got Brother Randy calling up. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam, good brother. How are you, young fella?
I'm doing all right, my brother. I want to thank you for coming on the podcast, brother. This is Brother Randy Evans. He is a researcher from out of Chicago. He was trained by Steve Coakley himself, and extensive reader. And I know these YouTube people want you to get to the point. I already know that. Do you want to say something to people that's listening briefly?
Well, good afternoon, brothers and sisters and listeners and stuff. And I appreciate y'all listening and supporting Brother Clifton Bradley of the Underground Railroad, who does a tremendous job in informing our community. I hope that you find some things that we discuss edifying.
You know what? There's a new currency, and it may not be new, just that has emerged, and it may be a threat to the U.S. dollar in our current system. And you know what? It is called BRIC. What is BRIC, and what are some of the nations that belong to it, Brother Randy?
Well, from what I recall, and correct me if I'm wrong, the BRIC is an acronym for Brazil, Russia, India, and China. Those are some of the developing countries and nation states and stuff that are challenging U.S. hegemony, economic and financial hegemony, and political hegemony.
Left out South Africa.
Well, that's also you said. So you said Brics, BRICS, South Africa.
Yes.
But the thing about in Africa, there's an issue dealing with the Chinese coming over and South Africa and other parts of Africa, trying to I guess merge the two together, China and Africa, creating what they call a second continent. There's a book by Howard French entitled "The Second Continent." Howard French, French, second continent,
Yeah.
and talks about China's the different things, the infrastructure work and other stuff that they're doing, and they putting money into Africa and stuff. But think about it, that we have to keep an eye on. No disrespect to the Chinese because their history is very deep, like ours is much deeper. As a matter of fact, the original Chinese were people of African descent. Okay. According to Joe Gus Rogers, the 100 Amazing Facts of the Negro. Okay, when he talks about Sun Yat-sen and stuff having black so-called Negro blood.
Yes.
Okay, and then if you look at Dr. Clyde Winters, the works of Dr. Clyde Winters about black people, about black presence in China. Clyde Winters, the researcher, Dr. Clyde Winters. But go on, my brother.
And you know what? What is it? You know what? First of all, this is new to me, and I know you're a reader. You know way more about it than me. When did the concept of brick come about?
Well, you have to kind of share that with me because I do remember becoming familiar with brick more than 6-7 years ago, and maybe older than that. I cannot give you the definitive, the time itself when it was started. But I think they've been developing over the years. But brick, I think, if I'm not mistaken, has been existing like less than 10 years, 15 years. I mean, I'm just guesstimating. Okay. And much of the stuff was going on, especially much of this occurred after, the different trade agreements, the NAFTA and GATT, North American Free Trade Agreement, and the General Agreement on Trades and Tariffs and stuff. So here you have the U.S. that was dominating, U.S., Israel, much of the European nations, stuff like that, Western nations, that basically were the superpowers that control the economies of much of the world and stuff. So, and they had they were unfair trade relationship with other nation states and countries, taking advantage and exploiting other nation states and countries. So China and other representatives from various parts, from Brazil, Russia, India, as well as South Africa, they got together and they decided that they're going to try to set up an entity that will basically try to help them to expand and grow as developing powers and stuff like that, to challenge the U.S. and European hegemony.
You know what is this? I would like to ask you something. Is this a threat to the U.S. currency if they succeed? Because there are a lot of nations that want to join BRIC and want to join that. And is it a serious challenge? And if
yes,
it is, what will be the catastrophic effects if it is?
I'm sure you can see that if these people are successful, these nation states and countries are successful, then the U.S. and stuff like that will be challenged in terms of jobs and as far as resources, battling over the resources stuff to try to get the products manufactured, produced, and also the dollar. The dollar is weakening. The U.S. dollar. The U.S. dollar number is fiat money. It's probably nothing to back end, silver or gold, anything like that, like it did years ago, centuries ago. Okay, over 100 years ago, the U.S. did have it was backed by some resources of like silver or gold, but what happened was because of the different entities that are controlled by the U.S. and the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, and as well as these other banking institutions, the Federal Reserve, those entities are basically responsible for the problems that the U.S. has as relates to the U.S. currency. And plus, that's the reason why you see the increases in goods and services and stuff like that. Because we're right now in a depression right now.
And going back in history, I would like to ask you briefly, what is the reason that President Nixon took the United States off the gold and silver standard. And what is the gold and silver standard?
Well, the thing about it, they took out Gold Silver Standard because they were talking. He talked to his economic and financial advisors. So, you know, that's a good question. Do you have any information to share about that, brother Cliff?
You know what? I just know that they came off the gold and silver standard. I think in 19. I forgot the year. But I know.
Did they provide the reasons why they did that? Those changes occurred because in the U.S., China, it was I think if I'm not mistaken, Nixon they decided to try to cultivate a relationship with China and stuff a number of years ago because there was a battle over the years. I mean, because the U.S. sees China as a threat to the economic and financial interests as well as political interests. Okay. There's been a battle going on for years. So the Chinese have not been treated well by the U.S. China has not been treated well by the U.S. For a number of years. You just remember the articles and stuff in the Sun Times. Chicago Newsweek. Well, not Chicago, but Newsweek and Time Magazine, as well as other articles that were very critical of the Chinese, talking about the yellow peril and all that kind of stuff. So there's been a real concern by the U.S. and those who are part of the various agencies about how the Chinese are growing and expanding, and their economy is growing and expanding. They're going into other countries because you see, like they're in Africa now, and it's challenging a lot of the U.S. and European businesses and corporations that are over in various parts of Africa as relates to the mineral resources as well as other resources that are in Africa. So, okay.
You know what? Is this okay? You say that the U.S. dollar is not backed up by anything. It is a fiat dollar. Is this the reason that the BRIC countries are purchasing gold and they're purchasing huge amounts of silver to back up their currency?
More than likely. I would think that that's part of the reason why. And I think the U.S. sees it as a threat. And then you have those interests that control the economy of South Africa, too. They also, because, South Africa is involved. It's not the people from our African brothers and sisters who really have the real control of Zania, South Africa. Because who controls consolidated gold fields, gold mines, and Anglo-American Corporate South Africa, okay? These are people who are relatives of, and then De Beers, and etc. I'm sure names probably change, but I'm saying you have certain financial interests and stuff, certain groups and stuff, certain families that control the major corporation businesses in Zania, South Africa. Okay, I'm talking about Oppenheimer, Harry Oppenheimer's family, Sir Nicholas Oppenheimer, and Oppenheimer family. If you want to find more, read the book, get the book South Africa Incorporated from the data center in California.
You know what? As the dollar bill possibly takes a decline from the BRICS nation, you think that will make the taxes go up on the people that can pay in Chicago? Not Chicago, United States, and inflation.
More than likely it will, but the thing about the problem is that it's the plutocrats, it's the wealthy that are really concerned about these changes stuff. But what they are concerned about is that if these prices and services and goods and services go up, increase and stuff, and then the people start, you can see social unrest. You can see people robbing, killing, like this stuff, the carjackings and attacks. See, as long as these different attacks and killings and shooting stuff are in our community, the black community, African community, then it's okay, it's tolerated. Mm-hmm. But the moment it spreads to the non-African, non-black areas, well, that's when people become concerned. When it started to when the people started going to the affluent area, the rich area, where the well-to-do, the rich people who making 6 or 7 figures, 8 figures, the multimillionaires and billionaires, the people who are part of the aristocracy, the elite, the wealthy, the plutocrats, these plutocrats or the wealthy. That's when you'll see some changes, some concerns and stuff. Okay.
When we talk about that, man, Brazil has already joined. My question is to you that the United States right now has weapons and they're supplying Ukraine with weapons. What happens?
Okay.
What happens if Russia decides to put missiles, hypothetically, in Brazil or any of these BRIC nations and their allies, is that possible?
I mean, the thing, I'm sure there's been some thoughts about them doing that stuff, but the problem is that then they're gonna probably get a response from NATO, North American Treaty Organization, NATO, the NATO military group and stuff, as well as others. So I think you already see what's going on, between the U.S. and Russia right now. I mean, where the Vladimir Putin was trying to annex Ukraine, right? Because Ukraine was a part of the Soviet Union, but it was USSR, okay. And so now that the USSR does not exist and stuff, and so there's still ongoing concerns about the Ukraine stuff. Who's going to control Ukraine? Because it's of geopolitical, geostrategic importance and stuff. And so you have the people. Zbigniew Brzezinski, who was the first director of the Trial Commission, and Jimmy Carter's former national security, U.S. national security advisor, him and others, people who are Islamists, pro-Islamists, from Washington, were concerned about what was going on and stuff, and in those areas, and about Ukraine and whatever. So they're the ones who really caused the collapse. The strategists in Washington caused the collapse of the USSR. Okay, there was an article in the consortiumnews.com that was Robert Perry's piece, the late Robert Perry, the investigative reporter who passed away a couple years ago. He used to write for various publications stuff, and it has his online research group with the consortiumnews.com as well. You go to the intercept.com, there's Glenn Greenwald and them. They basically talked about. They had discussions about Ukraine, about the racists, the Nazis in Ukraine. Okay, as a matter of fact, this recent situation, where the Russians attacked Ukraine, the African brothers and sisters, the African migrants, they're not like the stuff they talk about, these basically the undocumented workers and stuff, the illegal aliens, or what they call illegal aliens, people who are here illegally and stuff.
Yeah, I saw that in the news.
So you can go, so you can go to counterpunchnewsletter.com and aljazeera.com and blackagenda.report.com and and these various websites to get other information stuff about what's going on, as well as if you go to Al Jazeera, it'll give you the lowdown on a lot of stuff that's going on, and as well as Amy Goodman's program, democracynow.org. You go to democracynow.org and you'll get coverage of what's going on and stuff. And it was, so that's it. So any other concerns or issues or questions?
One other question. How do you think that this is going to turn out? From people's synopsis of how you think this is going to turn out with BRICS versus the Federal Reserve and all these other nations? What do you think is going to be the outcome?
Well, I think that basically, I think it's going to be, unfortunately, it's going to be like the OK Corral if you're not careful. Okay. Okay, it's going to be, see, I learned you can have strategic defense, strategic offense, and strategic stalemate, right? So I think they're going to try to, because the U.S. is really in a very bad position because the U.S. is in debt to a number of nation states and countries in China and other places stuff and Saudi Arabia. If these groups were to call in the debt, the U.S. would be in some serious trouble. You would see more, and the elite, those who are part of the elite, and will be jumping out the windows, committing suicide, okay, and killing themselves and stuff. And you'll see the economy of the U.S. Plummet and stuff. And that so they know that there are certain things that the U.S. has to be careful because see they're playing a game. If you go to the Council on Foreign Relations and Trial Commission and get their reports. And they'll show you in the various reports from the Trial Commission and Council of Foreign Relations their concerns about BRIC and about India and about what's going on. And they think that they're looking at Africa. They think they have control of Africa. But see, the problem is that you have people within Africa that won't stand up and challenge a lot of stuff that's going on because they don't want to end up like Patrice Lumumba and Kwame Nkrumah and Amilcar Cabral, a number of our African leaders and stuff. I remember Brother Samora Machel, and so how his plane crashed. So my thing is, we have to protect our African brothers and sisters on the continent and throughout the global African world, as Winoka Rashidi talks about his global journey throughout the world and stuff like that. Winoka Rashidi, well-known researcher and scholar who passed away over a year ago.
Yes. Well, you know what, Brother Randy, do you have, please, can you give people your contact information? How do people get in contact with, and do you have some finishing comments? Because I'm sure there's a specific message you want to put out.
No, I mean, as far as contact, they can kind of reach out to you and stuff, because this is, how we operate. I wouldn't want to share my information like that over, because my problem, I have some problems with my phone system right now. Okay. So if they want any information stuff, they can reach out to you. You give your information stuff, and that way, then I can try to connect. And they give your name and phone numbers, and if they need some information, a reading list, a book list, or some information stuff, then I can probably work out something and mail stuff to them. Okay.
Do you have any finishing comments?
Well, my thing is, I just want to say I appreciate much of the work that you're doing. I also want to acknowledge our brothers and sisters who made the transition, particularly people like Jim Brown, the one football player and activist and businessman who died just recently, Brother Jim Brown at the age of 87, as well as Eugene Perkins, the poet and playwright and this Renaissance man who recently died a little over a week ago on the 7th of May. And then also Brother Harold Belafonte, who recently made his transition, activist, great humanitarian, just a beautiful brother. Also like the other two I mentioned. Yeah. And I mean, just like I said, and a number of other. I hope no disrespect to any other brothers and sisters. I didn't leave my intention, but those are people coming to my right way, and I know Brother Eugene Perkins quite well, and just much respect to them and stuff. And I hope that people also lift them up and support them and stuff. So and then also want to say that the people keep reading and studying and stay informed. Go to blackagendareport.com and get the material. Go to counterpunchnews.com and get the information. Go to and join the various organizations, black organizations and stuff. And your Amishada is the proprietor of Underground Bookstore, as well. Go to the Culture Connection bookstore on 71st and Stewart here in Chicago. Okay. And with that, I also want to say thank you for interviewing me and for letting me share with the brothers and sisters who are listening. Thank you.
Okay, brother. Assalamu alaikum to you. Thank you, brother.
Wa alaikum salam.
All right. Take care. I'm going to end this, and what Brother Randy Evans is a good brother in the community. I'm going to try to get him on to talk about what's going on with China.
You have reached the Small Business Funding Department.
And how China's maybe taking advantage of a whole lot of nations by giving them loans that they cannot pay back in Africa. But is it to better Africa? Or is it to exploit Africa? And we're going to sit back and look at that. But we were talking about Brics. So thank you very much for watching. If you like this, share it. You know what I'm saying? So
in recent years, BRIC countries, Brazil, Russia, India, and China, have emerged as critical players in the global economy. With their rapidly growing economies, these countries are changing the traditional power dynamics in the world economy. These pictures examine how the BRIC nations are shaking things up and what it means for the global economy. We'll start by looking at the economic growth projections for each country and what's driving their expansion. We'll also explore their various challenges, including corruption, political instability, and environmental concerns. Next, we'll examine these nations' impact on the global economy. We'll explore how their growing middle classes drive consumer demand and how their increasing global connectivity creates new opportunities for trade and investment. Finally, we'll look at the implications of the BRIC nations' rise for the future of the global economy. We'll consider how their rise reshapes international trade patterns and how their continued growth might affect the global balance of power. So join us for this deep dive into the BRIC nations and their impact on the worldwide economy.
So you're saying is the biggest threat to the United States of America is not China, it is Russia. Okay. Like
It has all the technology. They have more missiles
Mhm.
than anyone else in the world. I think it's some close to 6,000 missiles.
Okay.
China only has about 400 or 500.
hmm Yeah, I mean, and Dr. Lee Warren, I'm gonna, and you know what, allows we don't to get you back on to talk about China next week. And you know what, please, if that any finishing, there may have been something that you wanted to say that I didn't give you the opportunity to say. If you wanted to convey some type of message, please do so.
I wanted to tell you it's the truth that's going to make you free. The United States is a weak country. They don't have the technology for war. In other words,
Yeah.
they don't have the manufacturing capacity to make a lot of ammunition and missiles.
Yes.
Russia's whole economy runs 24/7 on that.
hmm
If you look at the missiles, if you just look at the missile technology, I think America's missiles,
hmm
anti-ship, only go about, I say, the range is about 500 or 600 miles, not even a good 1,000 miles.
hmm
The Tomahawk missiles is what they have.
Yes.
Russia and China has missiles that can go 1,000 miles an hour.
Hypersonic speed. So you're saying is the biggest threat to the United States of America is not China, it is Russia. Okay. Like
It has all the technology. They have more missiles
hmm
than anyone else in the world. I think it's some close to 6,000 missiles.
Okay.
China only has about 400 or 500.